Today, I'm honored to be speaking with Kate Doerge. Kate's daughter Penny passed away in November 2022 from neurofibromatosis, or NF, the most common genetic disorder in children, yet one of which there is still no cure. Penny bravely battled NF her whole life, yet no one would have known. Penny never let her condition inhibit her in any way. She was always positive, always happy, always kind, and always optimistic. Penny lived every day of her 16 years to their fullest, and in the way that life should be lived, full of love and laughter. In the wake of Penny's passing, Kate, her husband Chad, their family, and all their friends and Penny's friends started the Penny's Flight Foundation. The work and mission of this foundation has turned into a national movement to find a cure for NF. All who were touched by Penny, and even those who've never had the privilege of knowing her, have approached their cause and mission with the same boundless positivity that defined Penny's life. In today's episode, Kate and I talk about Penny's life and legacy, what she and the foundation and communities across the country are doing to raise awareness and funds to find a cure for NF, and most importantly, how she and her extraordinary family, friends, and community are approaching their mission to make a difference in the lives of others and to honor their daughter, who they loved so much. And with that, here's Kate Doerge. Kate, I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to be here, Leslie. Thank you.
Kate and I are in a very, well, we were talking about the lighting before. They usually have like surgery room lighting, but it's quite dim.
It's very good for the complexion.
I know, very good for our complexion. I'm sure it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but it's about 3:30 here. It is a conducive, this lighting is conducive to a cocktail lounge, but we prefer it. We prefer it.
We do.
It makes for a very relaxed environment. We were talking before Jess hit record in our booth there. It's like WKRP in Cincinnati over here with Jess in there and Kate and I out here. But, everyone who is lucky enough to know you and Chad and your entire family are always so in awe of you and your positivity and your resilience, and how all of you honor Penny's legacy and her light and her positivity and everything that you do in your dedication to finding a cure for neurofibromatosis.
Look at you. You're able to pronounce it.
I mean,
it was
so
quite
there were some stops and starts, I'm not going to lie, but I'm very thankful that someone came up with the abbreviation NF.
Yes.
So we don't have to go through that. I don't have to mispronounce it.
No, you can use NF.
But before we talk about NF, I know about Penny, obviously, but tell all those that are listening more about Penny and what a special person she was.
Well, Penny, oh my gosh, where to begin? Penny truly was the brightest light with the biggest heart, and she was that kid who, from the moment she was born, Chad and I just looked at her, and we knew she was special because she always had a smile on her face, and the minute she walked into the room, she just would light up the room, and she sort of was a Pied Piper to young kids because they just loved her, and they followed her everywhere, and she was so kind, but she was funny. I mean, God, she was so funny, and she was mischievous and naughty all at the same time, but, she just lived the most beautiful, biggest life with this positivity and resilience. So she was truly, a sparkling child and teenager. She had some, faults through the teenage years, but she now is just this, again, the brightest light in the sky and such an angel.
Tell us when or at what point you and Chad learned that she had NF.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this goes back, I think back to when it all really began. The night before Chad and I got married, my father, I've told this story before, but when my father pulled us aside and said, listen, you both have lived this charmed life. You have beautiful friends and you have beautiful family who are here, gathered here to witness your wedding and this wonderful weekend, but you will be challenged, and it's up to you how the two of you decide to play the cards you're dealt in life. And of course, we looked at my dad and we're like, you're really killing our vibe right now. We're going into a 4-day raging weekend. But with that advice, I kept that in my head and Chad kept it in his. And when Penny was just 4 months old, we lived in New York City downtown, and she rolled off our bed and she fractured her tibia bone. And the funniest thing is that she didn't even cry. I think I was in the bathroom getting ready for work, and she rolled off her bed. And I heard this thud. We raced to the pediatrician because her leg was super hot, and they sent us right up to hospital for special surgery. And it was at that moment that the orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Roger Whitman, who's our god and hero to this day, took one look at it, and he was like, listen, this is not only a fracture, but it's something much larger called congenital pseudarthrosis. And we were like, what? 1 out of 300,000 kids have it. And not only is it that, but it looks like, because this is so rare, it's under this umbrella of something called neurofibromatosis. So at 4 months old, we have, really the first moment a child of ours has truly had something traumatic happen. And he was like, but don't Google NF. Let's just focus on her leg for the time being.
What was your feeling at that moment? Were you just kind of letting him be your guide and like, we're not going to Google it and we're just going to take it one step at a time? Or?
I think it was going back to my father's advice, where it was like, okay, we've just been, given this crazy news, but stop time for a moment and make a decision. How are we going to play this out? And it was a little bit of this faith over fear. And I just looked up at Roger Whitman, who's much taller than I am. He's like 6'4", 5. And I just felt like, okay, faith over fear. We're in the best hands. Right. And if you're telling me don't Google NF and this is what we're going to do, we're going to go with it. And it wasn't blind naivete. It was more of, I know hospital for surgery is the best. And he also suggested we go to Scottish Rite Children's Hospital in Texas. And he was like, I feel so confident about not only the diagnosis, but also what we are going to do for Penny's leg, that I want you to go get a second opinion. And so at 5 months old, we raced to Texas, and they basically were like, he's correct. This is what we would do for the leg surgery. And Penny had 7 surgeries on her leg and wore a brace every day of her life, as you know. So I think we didn't get into the weeds. We just felt this confidence of faith over fear. We're in good hands. She's a beautiful, happy baby. That's what has happened to her. Doesn't change her demeanor.
Right.
Well,
I think you all, and we talked about this a little bit before, but I mean, from your friends watching on the outside, I had thought that maybe Penny had kids have growth issues and they need braces or they need to have surgery on their bones. And I think most of us thought it was a bone related thing that she was, working through, because it never held her back in any way. And that, is a testament to how you and Chad decided to respond, right?
Yeah, and it was that moment where, we got the diagnosis and at 4 months old with the fractured tibia bone, and then a few months later we did get the test to confirm she had neurofibromatosis, but we just didn't want to define her life by a brace or surgeries, and that's really how we rolled it out, where we were just so determined to make sure she had this big, beautiful life. And that from the moment she had her first surgery, she was in a body cast for 3.5 months at the age of 18. And, we wanted it to be a big, pink, bright, body cast. And her casts were always bedazzled.
I was going to say, and signed and all jazzed up.
And signed and jazzed. And, she always had a bow in her hair, and hair was perfect. And it just was so important to make sure that life was normal. And I'll never forget, there she was in her big body cast. And we would take her to the beach, and we would take her we put her on a swing somehow. But it was that feeling of like, we are not going to let this define her life, and therefore she wasn't defined, and it was just who she was. And the braces she wore on her legs were beautiful, and they were bedazzled, and they had butterflies. That's the craziest part.
Well, I want to talk to you about the butterflies, but I want to talk about NF for just a second, because you were saying that she had the test to confirm that she had it, and am I correct in saying it is the most common genetic disorder in children?
Yeah.
But yet there still is not cure.
No, and this is what is, why we're on this mission now, because we, like so many other families, when Penny was diagnosed with NF, we weren't focused on NF because when they told us she had it, they said NF is the most common genetic condition in the United States, but it's the most unknown because you can have a variety of symptoms or none. So in Penny's case, they said, yes, she has NF, but she only has congenital pseudoarthrosis, which is the bowing of the tibia bone. So we were just focused in that area. Some patients or some kids, when they're diagnosed, they may have cafe au lait spots. They may have, topical tumors. And NF is neurofibromatosis, is the growth of tumors along the nerve pathways. So you can have them anywhere. So for instance, you get these annual checkups, your eye checkups, you get MRIs to see if there's growth of tumors anywhere in the body. So for Penny, we were fortunate in that she didn't have tumors anywhere, and it was just her leg. So I think people who've had this diagnosis focus on what they can focus on. So for us, it was focus on her leg and the orthopedic surgeries she had. So I joined the board of HSS. I launched the annual fundraiser for pediatrics because they had been so incredible for us and were so supportive. So we didn't even think about NF. I mean, it wasn't on our radar. And so we were not a part of the NF community, not because we didn't want to be, but it was by choice of this is what we're focusing on and this is what we're tackling now. And again, we didn't even talk about it because what was the point? If we weren't focusing on it, Penny wasn't showing other signs. But now, from everything we've learned and everything we've been through since Penny passed in November 2022, it's unbelievable, these stories that you hear of some of these families and what they go through. And, these kids.
From the outset, managing the tumor piece.
Yeah. And, these tumors that are benign, but then they turn malignant, and children who lose their eyesight or children who have tumors all over their bodies to the point they are disfigured. And it is devastating to hear these stories because there is no cure. And so there's no hope for so many of these families who are just trying to get through it day to day. And that's why we just feel like this is it. This is what we've got to do. And, Leslie, it wasn't until Penny developed the first brain tumor that we even thought about NF. It wasn't even in our mind for 14 years of her life.
And Penny passes away in November of 2022, and I remember, it was very soon thereafter, you just in awe of you and Chad getting the kind of emulating her spirit and focusing on this mission, right? And starting the Penny's Flight Foundation. And so tell me about, I remember the conversations, after that and the logo. The butterfly. So
it was such a journey, and I will say, as I mentioned, it wasn't until Penny was 14 that she first developed a tumor, and it was in her brain. And for really 2 years, Penny fought it without anyone knowing.
Yeah.
We did chemo and radiation, and she just lived this beautiful life, as we talked about, and she remained a counselor for her glam camp.
I know, the glam camp. I envy I wanted to be a camper at the glam camp. I tried to get a Cabbage Patch camp off the ground when I was around her, a little bit younger than she was.
Yeah.
And people weren't paying. It was open. You could drop your Cabbage Patch off, and I would take care of it. So all of the glam camp photos and the shots and all the stuff that she was doing.
Oh, it was incredible.
I was just in
Well, they
awe
were
of
such
her.
little entrepreneurs, Penny and her girlfriends, and they were always coming up with businesses. But Glam Camp was one of the best because it was coming out of COVID and taking care of these young girls. And then they did Adventure Camp, where the next summer they included boys too. But the point of that is that was so Penny's focus with her girlfriends that she didn't let her, she was going through serious radiation, and she had to go into the city, or we would take her into the city, and she would get 5 days a week, 20-minute blasts. But we scheduled them at 7:30 a.m. so we could get in, get out. She could get to glam camp. And so she did that. So for 2 years, chemo, radiation, clinical trials, all of that, and 7 brain surgeries. So this is a kid who, we talk about her resilience and her positivity. Never once did she complain through all of that. And so in the fall of 2022, she had her 7th brain surgery. And we went in for one more MRI. It was like hundreds and hundreds of MRI. And at that point, the interesting thing about a glioblastoma of an NF patient is that it can be contained longer than a non-NF patient, which is actually interesting and something we're looking into in terms of scientific research. But there is a barrier around an NF glioblastoma that does not exist for non-NF patients. So this barrier was there, and it allowed us to work with her surgeon to just pluck the tumor out. And that's what we kept doing. Every time we'd see an MRI and there was the tumor, it was back. You'd be like, we can get in and we can take it out.
So it was not, so the edges were clean when the tumor was removed because it was contained because of the...
Yeah, there was still a little bit there, but there was hope that if you get the tumor out, then we can treat the edges and we can keep treating the cells. And so that's really what we were doing until October of 2022. And when we went in for that MRI, the barrier had broken, and that's when it had spread. And it was in that moment that I think Chad and I looked at each other and we're like, this is it. But again, we were dealt cards, and to my father's, advice, it was like, how are you going to play it? So we scooped Penny up at MSK. We brought her home. We filled the house with love and light and music blaring. And there was so much love in our house during that last week that, friends have said, God, this is just like a love cocoon, and we're sending Penny off on a rocket ship of love. And it really was that recognition that there was so much support from our community, so much love from our friends and family, to your point, who had no idea.
Yeah.
So when they would come into our house and they were just filled with such grief and sorrow and sadness, I'd run down the stairs and I'd be like, hi, welcome, I'm so glad you're here. Come see Penny. Her girlfriends are sitting all over her bed, and our dogs are there.
But that, Kate, as you're describing this, I'm trying to keep my act together over here. But I think that just the example that you set, just you kind of sublimating all of your own grief, right, and feeling inside, and just saying, I'm deciding I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to send her off, on a rocket ship of love and happiness and music and
joy.
There was people that were head of food and beverage. There was a lot of things happening at your
committees.
house. A lot of.
You see where personalities come through, but it was that choice, though, Leslie. It was like, we have no other choice. I just felt like I recognized at that time what a difference we had made in Penny's life, choosing joy from day one and not letting, the brace on her leg or the NF diagnosis or any of that define who she was. So I was like, we're just not going to let this moment define her passing. Right. And also, I think Chad and I recognized what an opportunity we had to bring our community together. There had not been a loss of a 16-year-old in our community. I don't even know when the last time was. So this was an opportunity to bring everyone together so that when Penny did pass, we had 30 people in our house downstairs. There was so much love, so much support. She left us on the most beautiful November day. And it was also that moment that we were like, we have to celebrate her life. We celebrated her life throughout the course of her life and her passing. And that's when we were like, okay, we're going to have a celebration of her life. We're going to have, no one's going to wear black. We are going to play music. We're going to have the most beautiful flowers. We're going to have all of our friends and all of our family come in. And that's what happened. When I don't even know how many people were there, but 1,100, 1,200 people who showed up. And I think going to your question of like, how did the formation of the foundation happen? It was that moment of Penny's final week, the celebration of her life on a Friday. Chad and I woke up on a Monday and we looked at each other and we're like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Like we have this foundation of love and support and family and friends. And I think we both recognize that it wasn't, because of Penny's congenital pseudoarthrosis she passed, it wasn't just her, glioblastoma. It was under the umbrella of this neurofibromatosis. And when we started to talk about that, because people were like, where do we support? Do we donate to HSS? Do we donate to MSK? Both of those organizations had taken such good care of Penny. We were like, no. We got to go to the top of the funnel. We have to find a cure for this thing because no one should go through this again. And so we woke up on that Monday morning and we're like, all right, well, let's go. Let's launch a foundation. We're going to find a cure for NF. And all of a sudden we pulled in all those like food committees and music committees from the celebration of Penny's life and, the boys, and we all came together and sat at the dining room table and we're like, all right, we're going to do this. What are we going to name it? And Henry Doerge was the one who was like, we're going to call it Penny's Flight. And Chad and I were like, well, Penny's purpose. And he was like, no, but it's about Penny's journey and her life. And now it's about that continuation of her life and her journey. And so then it started to take off. And I was like, of course it's going to be Penny's Flight. And, our friend Tim Grant, who's not an illustrator, if he's listening, I love him. He's very creative. But he sat down and he did the logo.
Did he draw the butterfly?
He drew the butterfly. And so we recognized then, I think with all of these powers and people coming to the table who had these beautiful ideas and, logos and slogans, spread your wings and shine your light, it was coming together in such an organic, fast, real way that I knew this is Penny. Like this is Penny making this happen. And we are her vehicles to help her, and it just took off. So with the logo, with the name, with, the slogan, all of these things, we launched 3 weeks after Penny passed away, and it just started to roll and snowball. And, we had these Positively Penny pop-up events. I had Jimmy Fallon doing the butterfly hands at some event.
I mean, by the way, I feel I said to Andrew, my husband, for listeners, I wasn't on Instagram, as you know, until this podcast, and I'm like, oh my, I missed this. I didn't know about that. It's like a whole thing happening that I feel like I missed out on some early Positively Penny events. But that energy and that love that was happening in your community, in your home and in your community during that time, and then following that time, you harnessing that and deciding, within days to get the gang together, and all of your friends were so inspired, and you're still seeing that.
Oh my gosh.
18 months later, people, there's no stopping.
No.
Penny's up there,
she's working
moving
hard.
mountains and making incredible things happen. So the foundation's focus is on a bunch of different things, right? Research, immunotherapy, collaboration, which I think is so critical, which is we could probably do a whole other podcast on that, just the importance of that. And then seed growth funding, I guess, for this Children's Tumor Foundation. Is that another to support their awards?
Yep. And I think for us, when as you were talking, Leslie, I'm just thinking about we set out to find a cure for NF, really. That was the premise here. But what transpired or what sort of evolved was this movement. And I am so proud of not only, the funding that we have put towards research, which we can talk about in a moment, but it really started with this movement and going back to this idea of the Positively Penny pop-ups. Yeah. And because when people ask me, they're like, how are you doing this? You and Chad and the boys and God, what you've been able to do. I'm like, it's not me. It's not us. It's we. We all have done this. And I say this all the time to Penny's closest girlfriends who are part of our advisory group. I'm like, there is no way we would have been able to do what we have done in the last 18 months if it wasn't for you guys and you girls and this younger generation, because truly I can't underestimate enough, or I can't explain enough the value that I attribute to the growth of the foundation because of what they've done. And it goes back to, what you missed on social media. But these events, I mean, we had 15 pop-up events the day we launched in various schools because these kids were so inspired to do something. And I am so inspired by them because they recognize the impact that they can make, and this idea of spreading wings and this, ripple effect that they have. It goes back to spreading kindness and Penny's life lessons of, we talk about finding beauty in imperfection, right? Having, positivity in the face of challenge and faith over fear. And what has come back time and time again when I talk to these younger generation and Penny's friends and friends who have said, life is tough right now on, college campus or high school campuses. So to be able to have an event where we're sharing positivity and the message around, no one's perfect. So finding beauty in imperfection is really cool. And, having this faith over fear that things are going to be okay, no matter what challenge you're being faced with. And so I think the movement that has been created for the foundation has been one of the most surprising but beautiful things that have come out of this, that we have, 15 Penny's Flight clubs across the country in colleges and high schools, and they're doing these fundraisers. So we have puppy yoga for Penny, pedal for Penny, painting for Penny. Thank God we named her Penny, because it's every iteration of P, where, play for Penny, pay for Penny, all of that. And they're doing it on their own. So I get these DMs and these texts from younger generation. They're like, Kate, I have this really cool idea. We want to do a mini Fam Jam concert. This is huge cred to Quinn Doherty up at Colby College, who has a mini Fam Jam concert next Friday night. Amazing. Play for Penny. It's a big fundraiser, but it's an awareness event. And so through social media, through these kids, friends of friends of friends, they've really grown this so that when we come back to raising the critical funds needed, then we go to our partnerships. And that, to your point about, what are our pillars, it's our movement and spreading positivity and joy and Penny's story to raise awareness for neurofibromatosis, but it's really to fund these incredible organizations. So, and the research that they're doing. So one of them is Cold Spring Harbor Labs.
Yeah.
Founder of DNA and an incredible organization or funding research. And they're in our backyard. So we got a call from Cold Spring Harbor Labs, and they said, we do so much genetic research. We're really interested in talking to you. And you're a young organization and young foundation with a lot of passion, and we find those are always the most interesting to work with because there's so much movement and awareness. And that was really exciting for us because we've developed this partnership with them. We're really excited about the research that they're doing. We've already funded a 2-year commitment of $1.1 million research project. One of the biggest things or most exciting things we're working on with Cold Spring Harbor Labs is their Banberry project. And that is where they bring in the top experts in any one field or any one topic to have a lock-in, and it's sort of like this think tank.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you were asking about collaboration, we're all about collaboration. So we don't want to be that foundation that's siloed. It's about bringing in the best in this topic or what topic we decide that the research is going to be on, bringing everyone in to have those learnings. What's working? What's not?
Yeah.
What can we do together? So I think that is really at the base of our foundation is spreading wings to not only keep this ripple effect going, but bring people in.
Well, I wanted to comment on something you were saying earlier about not only your friends, doing Positively Penny events, or all of these young people doing things at their boarding schools or their high schools or their colleges, but you and Chad basically have allowed or given these kids a vehicle to take their own grief.
Yeah.
And you said faith over fear, because it is so scary, right?
Yes. And there's no handbook, Leslie.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, I didn't lose a friend, my best friend, at age 16. So how do you explain what to do or how to react or how to feel to not only, our kids, our boys who, Frankie was 11 and Henry was 18 when Penny passed away, but her very best friends who, had grown up with her. So...
But giving them that vehicle is having sort of teaching them the lesson, and your whole community and all your friends the lesson of how you can take something that could be one way and deciding that you're going to take action and you're going to make it into something that's transformative and positive.
Beautiful.
Is just, it's really incredible to see. And there was a Penny's Flight event at the J. McLaughlin in Millbrook.
Yeah.
So I went to pick up one of Penny's closest friends, Lily Grant, and I thought it was just going to be me and Lily going, and I had invited some adults, but Lily brought some of her friends from school and who didn't know Penny. But to your point about kids that didn't even know Penny wanting to be a part of something that's so positive and to learn more about it and to buy the butterfly pajamas, all of that is just, it really has this incredible ripple effect, really incredible ripple effect.
Yeah, I think, again, that's what's been the most beautiful thing for us. And, there's nothing more gratifying, certainly to have Penny's legacy being passed on and on and on and on. But, again, to see that these kids are rising up, and it's not something we're not telling them what to do. This is so organic in the sense that they want to do this. They want to be a part of it. And I think that it's helped them grieve. And for those that were super close with Penny, it's helped them recognize, like, pain into purpose.
Right.
Like, they can take that pain and put it towards helping other people. So it really has been incredible to see all of this younger generation coming in. And as I said, like, we have kids who didn't even know Penny, who want to get involved and want to launch these clubs, and I think have been inspired by her story and recognize they can make a difference.
Yeah. And her example and how she led her life.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about sort of all the different ways that NF can present, is the genetic research, is that the focus or one of the main focuses, and this partnership with Cold Spring Harbor that you're focusing on through the foundation?
Yeah. I mean, our hope is, on a cellular level, is really taking a look at how, how these cells interact and with the NF cells and what we can do. We do have a research project with Children's Tumor Foundation, who's another partner. So between Cold Spring Harbor Labs and Children's Tumor Foundation, and we're developing a partnership with the Gilbert Foundation, whose their son, Nick Gilbert, passed away last spring from a optic tumor, and he was led to go blind and lose his eyesight. And so we're excited about the research that's being done. There are opportunities there to learn more, and in terms of what we're funding and how that can help other conditions, that's also part of the discussion with Cold Spring Harbor Labs as well. One of the things I will say when we're talking about the pillars of what we fund, obviously our research around, genetic mutation and specific to neurofibromatosis, but I'm very proud of our partnership with Hospital for Special Surgery.
Yeah.
And, Penny, as we talked about, she lived this big, beautiful life, and, she wore this brace, but she danced and she, skated, and she did all these incredible activities. And so when Penny passed away, Dr. Roger Whitman, who was her doctor for 16 years, had founded the Adaptive Academy at Hospital for Special Surgery. This was years ago. And he was developing the program and building it out. And when Penny passed away, in her honor, he wanted to rename it the Penny Doerge Adaptive Academy, which for me is the greatest tribute, because the Academy allows HSS patients to live a beautiful, normal life by giving them the opportunity to go skiing, adaptive skiing, go adaptive windsurfing, adaptive water skiing, adaptive painting classes, like all of these activities that otherwise these children wouldn't be able to participate in. Yeah, and wouldn't have access to. So not only was that an honor, but it's such a gift because we fund the PDAA and we raise money for the Academy and to grow these events and evolve the Academy. And having been to a couple of these events this past year, there is nothing more beautiful than seeing the joy and the smile on these kids' faces who have cerebral palsy and they're in a wheelchair, and there they are skiing down Windham Mountain, and they've got, this one boy who is there with his family. I spoke to the parents, and they were like, we don't ski. We never grew up skiing, but this is the one activity that we can bring, our son and his brother and sister, and they're doing it together.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool, and it's so beautiful. So to be able to support the PDAA, certainly Cold Spring Harbor Labs, CTF, and we're looking for more opportunities.
Well, I love the fact that you are supporting not just, the research and looking for the cure, but also efforts to support the children that are currently, at HSS and just need sort of that what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, to live a happy life.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to be sure I mention, because I'm so proud of, again, Penny's girlfriends and our advisory group. And when we set the foundation, we set out to obviously raise funds for the research and for PDAA, but we put aside a grant for the advisors or the advisory group to decide where they wanted to put their money. So this was for them.
Great.
Yeah. And we said, you do the research, you come back to us, you present it to us and tell us, something that Penny would be really proud of, like something she would love. And as you know, Penny was an artist and she was so creative. And so they found this program called Kids in Art, and it allows children, pediatric cancer patients, who are at home post-treatment to have art kits sent to their home. So as they're recovering and going through that, they have these art kits that are sent to their home. So it was a $10,000 grant, and they allowed for 750 art kits to be sent across the country.
I mean, Kate, you should almost have, whether it's write a book or have your own podcast or there's so many different channels or vehicles that your experience or how you approached your experience and the incredible impact that it's made on others. I mean, just listening to how thoughtful you and the board, Chad, and whoever else is on your advisory board for Penny's flight, that let's have her friends decide how to use these funds and what a great impact that they've made and what a great organization that they found.
Yeah, and such an incredible lesson for them, to learn, but it keeps them involved. And, my hope is that we do find it, not my hope, we will,
yes, you will find
a cure for NF. But the reality is, as we get older, we need a younger generation who feels that they're a part of this and that they are involved and that they're making a difference. So, while we talk about the funding and, with Cold Spring Harbor Labs and these big organizations, we've wanted them to feel like they had something tangible where they could make an immediate difference. So that's been really fun. And that will continue. And their grant will continue to grow as well.
Well, this month, May is NF Awareness Month, and in addition to, these young people who are doing incredible things and making such an impact and having these events, some of your adult friends are doing some incredible things too. I'm wearing my Penny loafers from Veronica Beard right now, but that's such an incredible, incredible initiative that Veronica Beard is doing. Do you want to tell people about that?
I mean, again, there's not enough gratitude, or I can't, there aren't words to express the gratitude and love truly for all of our friends and community and certainly, brands who've come to the table to support us because they know they have the platform. And oh my gosh, the Veronicas, there aren't words to express my gratitude for them, but that what they are doing is a really beautiful thing. So they have this Veronica Beard Gives Back partnership or initiative where they partner with an organization for the quarter. So for us, it's April, May, June, and a percentage of all sales online goes back to the charity for that time period. And in addition, they do in-store events. So for us, they have 34 stores across the country, Toronto and London. And we've been doing these in-store shopping events where we have these co-hosts come in. They invite their friends. Percentage of sales from that event goes back to the foundation. And so, by the way, that has been the most beautiful thing because I have friends of friends of friends, people I don't even know who are hosting. So that's been amazing. But then they have the penny loafer, which $50 for each sale of the penny loafer goes back to the foundation as well. So it's, when we talk about spreading wings and the ripple effect and the platform they have given us from an awareness perspective, aside from just the money and the funds that are being raised, is really, really a beautiful thing. And we have other friends. Jay McLaughlin has been incredible. As you said, they did the collaboration with Print Fresh with the butterfly pajamas.
You have a big event happening in June.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. So Fam Jam. Yep. Jamming with your fam. This is Chad's brainchild.
I was going to say, how is, by the way, what's the band.
Wycliffe?
No, not Wycliffe. Powder and the band.
Oh, yeah, the Garden Weasels.
The Garden Weasels.
Oh, my gosh, we need a reunion of the Garden Weasels.
The Weasels should have some kind of, should they be the opening act?
We do have Tim Grant and Josh Gruce and others.
Oh, are they doing?
Yeah, Liquor Cake. Oh, no, excuse me, not Liquor Cake. Cantuck. Sorry, Timmy.
I've got it. Oh, I didn't realize.
Oh, yeah.
They've splintered off.
Oh,
my God. I didn't know that Tim was like the Paul McCartney of the Garden Weasels.
Yes, he's getting a lot of airtime today. Not only is he great at creating the logo, but he's also highlighted as the band.
But tell us about the Fam Jam. So Wyclef Jean is coming.
Yes. Okay. So Family Jamboree, this is our second annual, and this was really the Chad Doerge brainchild, where when we were talking about a fundraiser, and granted, remember, we launched the foundation December 9th. Penny had passed away November 10th. And by February, we were talking about how we wanted to have a fundraiser, a huge fundraiser on her birthday, which is June 29th. And so Chad was like, I have this vision. We grew up going to the Boston Pops, and we'd bring a picnic blanket and all the kids would be running around, kissing in the bushes. The parents would bring their picnics and listen to great music and drink and have a wonderful meal on a beautiful summer evening. So he said, I want to recreate that. All right, can you go? Go.
Exactly.
And so we brought in all of our people, again, our committees, and we started to brainstorm. And it was just, again, this incredibly organic, beautiful thing in creating what we called the Fam Jam, or Family Jamboree. And last year, we had 650 people at Planting Fields Arboretum in Long Island, and we had Donovan Frankenreiter, who we love, as our headliner, and we had Liquor Cake, who are our friends, and they were our opener, and we did these pop-ups. So we had a glam tent, we had a merch tent, we had dodgeball, HSS was there as one of our sponsors, and so it was really awesome, and it was a beautiful night, and we did a beautiful drone show. So we raised $1.1 million that night, which was just incredible. And I love it because when we were in the formation of Fam Jam, Chad was like, all right, so we're looking at raising $300,000. I was like, we're looking at raising over $1 million. And he was like, calm down, expectations here, manage. And so this year is our second annual, and we do have Wyclef as our headliner. We have Caroline Jones, who's amazing, from Zach Brown Band. She has her own band. We have, as we talked about, Liquor Cake, and we have Cantuck. And so it's going to be at Planting Fields Arboretum. We're hoping to have 850 people. We have food trucks. We have, again, a glam tent. We have merch. We have a dunk tank. Lots of activities on a beautiful summer night on Penny's birthday, June 29th.
We're going. The Heenies will be there. We will be there.
Wait.
So we've got the Fam Jam.
Yeah.
What is next for Penny's flight? I mean, what are...
Well, we're going to find a cure for NF.
Yep.
Yep.
And what are people who are listening that are also so inspired by, your example and what you and all of those that love you are doing, what can people do to help?
For us, thank you. It's really it's awareness, first of all. The fact that you can even pronounce neurofibromatosis is a huge step. And
I like NF better.
Yeah,
it works better for me.
More comfortable. But it's spreading wings and it's spreading awareness. And yes, it's funding. It's, get on board. Come to Fam Jam. We have sponsorships available. We have packages. We, are trying to raise this awareness so that people hear these stories and recognize we all have an opportunity and we can do this if we come together. And that's really what it comes down to is get on board, spread your wings, shine your light, do this with us.
Live like Penny lived.
Yeah,
right?
Live like Penny lived. And that's a beautiful thing. I have people most days who text me and they're like, you know what? I woke up feeling like crap and I thought, what would Penny Doerge do? She would get up, she would go, she would live, laugh, and have a beautiful life.
You are such a positive person and such a strong person, but you probably have those days occasionally where you also maybe don't feel like getting out of bed. I know have them myself, and but she must be such an example to you too, an inspiration to you. Sort of thinking about what would Penny do?
What would Penny do? And I say that to myself, and it's interesting because honestly, Leslie, I don't have a lot of days where I'm like, ugh, I don't want to get up. Every day I'm like, I'm going to put my 2 feet on the ground and I'm going to go because I've got so much to do and not enough hours in the day to do it. But it also is, there are those moments where it's like, what would Penny do? She would smile and she would move on and she would choose joy. And we have seen that through and through from the day she rolled off her bed. Choose joy, keep going, keep, the diagnosis, choose joy. I mean, she would be told she had to have brain surgery and be like, all right, but we're going to go river rafting in 2 weeks. Let's go. So if you can kind of have that North Star of choose joy and positivity, the difference that's going to make in the long term is everything.
Well, Kate, you're an inspiration to me.
Oh, you're an inspiration to me. I'm so happy you've done this podcast. I love it.
I mean, it's a great excuse to get to see you,
It's so fun. It is. I'm really proud of you, and you're doing an awesome job.
You're sweet. And for you and for me, it's very close to the train station, which is a positive.
Exactly.
But I love seeing you. I can't wait for the Fam Jam. I don't know if, what's it called? I can't believe there's these garden weasel splinter bands.
The Cantuck and Liquor Cake.
Somehow I didn't get the nod for any backup vocals. We might need to.
We'll get you up there.
We got to figure that out. But I'll be ready to go. But and I know it's going to be a huge success. And I know with you and Chad and all of our friends and this incredible community that you've inspired, you will find a cure. We will find a cure to NF.
We will find a cure for NF. So thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Kate. That brings us to the end of this episode of The Interview. A huge thank you again to Kate Doerge for joining, and as always, thank you again for listening. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and follow us on Instagram at The Interview with Leslie. A new podcast is released every Wednesday. And until then, this is Leslie, and don't forget to join The Interview.